What is going on, everybody? It is Friday, and that means it's time for my news radar. And let's start off this episode by talking about a couple of apps that are being updated by Microsoft. The first one is OneDrive, and this is really a long time coming. If you've been a long time user of OneDrive, you probably know that very little about this application has changed over the last many years. One of the biggest complaints I think Microsoft has levied against it, in particular now with Windows 11, as it's beginning to get better, but there for a while it was really noticeable. Their operating system, their apps often represented almost a chronological visual depiction of what they've done over the years. So you would see some menus that would look like Windows 7, and then there's some 10, here's some 11, all sorts of different, 8 might be in there a little bit as well. And OneDrive was kind of one of those apps that looked really old. It just visually did not fit in with the style of the other apps around it. Well, we now have a leaked OneDrive client, some screenshots from this via NeoWin and via Twitter for them. And from this, we can kind of get a general idea of what OneDrive is probably going to look like in the not so distant future. It actually has the visual appearance of Windows 11. Absolutely incredible. It's taken this long, but if we go through these screenshots, you can see in terms of new functionality, I don't believe that there's anything here now that isn't already currently a thing, but it definitely does look far better than it did before. It looks like it actually belongs in Windows 11, which is definitely not the case as it stands. Now, more and more apps are beginning to receive this sort of visual facelift to make it all kind of have one nice consistent appearance. Windows 11 continuing to come along. I did say, though, that there were 2 Microsoft apps being updated, and this one is a little bit different, a little bit odd. So if you're someone like myself that uses a Surface Duo, or perhaps you just use Outlook as your email client, you probably use the Outlook Android or I guess iOS app. It's a pretty solid app. There's a lot of good features. On Duo, it can span. You can look at your calendar. There's all kinds of really good stuff in this application. Multi-account support is there. Well, now Microsoft looks ready to roll out a Lite version of Outlook to presumably lower end, less powerful devices. And maybe you don't need the full feature set. This would save a lot of space and maybe be easier to run. And you can kind of get a look here of what it's going to look like. It's a pretty basic, simple user interface. Of course, you'll still have the ability to swipe your messages away and do certain things like that. But there's a lot of functionality that has actually been stripped away a little bit. This is an app that's already in existence in a few different countries. And in fact, if you go to APK Mirror, you can actually go ahead and download an early access build of this application. And I did so, but I immediately ran into a problem because it is limited to only Outlook, Hotmail, Live, and MSN accounts. I use Google for everything. So Gmail for my personal, and then a Gmail sort of account under the Scary If Literal website for my work account. So this is not something I can really take advantage of, but I basically found a way to log in with some kind of bogus Outlook email that I guess I had attached to some account. And I got to look at it, and there's a few weird things on there, like you can set to swipe to delete, but you can't swipe to move to a folder. So I'm not sure folders just aren't there. Maybe this stuff is going to come along later. Logging out wasn't also possible. I had to actually clear the storage of the device to be able to then try to log in later. It's before I then realized that I just could not actually log in with my real Gmail account. But again, if you use one of these accounts, this might be a good option for you. And they also mention that it's meant for fast performance on low-end devices on any network. So maybe they're thinking about kind of just being deployed on some like lower-end hardware. And that kind of makes sense in a work kind of setting. So in case you're curious, this is what the application looks like. Again, this is kind of a bogus account, so there's nothing on here. You can swipe left and right and set different actions for that to complete. You can look at your calendar, which I have no plans on anything because, again, bogus account. Swipe down and see more of the calendar people there as well. You can see what settings you have here. You can make folders, so maybe if you have a folder set up, maybe then you can swipe and move to a folder. As far as settings, it's pretty basic. You do have access to suggested replies. Automatic replies are there that you can actually set. You also have access to your signature and a focused inbox. All in all, it looks pretty decent. I think for most of us, we're going to be fine to keep using the full fat Outlook app, but maybe this is good for some people. Now, this last story is kind of an update to something that I talked about a couple of weeks ago. I brought you guys a news story about how Samsung was really struggling to sell their mid-range phones and their budget phones, their A-series devices. And this kind of piggybacks on this. This headline here from Fandroid: Samsung could focus more on its foldables at the expense of the rest of its lineup. And we have a quote here from the Korean Times. It says, quote, Samsung will lower its sales target of the Galaxy A and the Galaxy S series and focus on selling new foldable phones to be released in August. Inflation has a more negative impact on the sales of low-priced phones versus higher-priced phones. Now, I don't want to toot my own horn here, right? But I called this. This is something that we talked about. I talked about how, yes, they were struggling to sell phones. We talked about how, yes, it was the A-series phones. They're mid-range, they're budget devices. And in that video, I dove into the economics of why I thought that was happening. These lower-priced phones are being purchased by who? By people who are most readily impacted by economic problems, by inflation, by gas prices, us being gouged to death at the pump. These people are being bled dry and they're not buying phones anymore. That's just the reality. If you don't have the excess money, you're not going to go upgrade your phone. You're going to keep it a little bit longer. But we also kind of gave some additional evidence there because we looked at some other facts. The fact that their S-series phones are selling okay. Their foldables are growing in sales. Apple is not struggling in this regard at all. They're selling phones pretty much the same as they always do. This carries over to other things. We talked about it in the world of Chromebooks. Chromebooks are taking a hit because they are the cheaper option. Premium laptops are still okay. Apple laptops are flat. They're not losing sales. Okay, this is pretty simple stuff, and it makes sense that Samsung would see that, hey, our budget stuff is not selling all that well. Well, we have these foldables that are premium products, and the people that are buying premium products, guess what? Big shock here. I don't want to surprise anybody. They have more money than the people buying the cheap products on average. Now, some people that have money buy cheap phones because they're just not into expensive phones, but by and large, people buying premium phones are not being hit as hard by what's happening in the economy right now. Those are the people that they're targeting with their foldables. So yes, they're losing mid-range and they're losing budget, but they're going to try and push premium, and not just any premium, right? The new exciting premium of foldables, partially because they're new and exciting, but also a big part of this is just that they're next. They're coming out next. That's the next thing in line. So, of course, we're losing sales here. We think this is an opportunity. Well, yeah, let's push this here. Let's push some marketing. Let's try and get these to sell to make up for those budget phones not selling as well. And let's end this news radar with something that might prove to be extremely frustrating for some of us in the very near future. You may have seen or heard of in other markets companies selling phones at a discount, but then putting ads in the phone. Now, I don't mean ads when you go to Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or wherever you might see ads. I mean ads actually baked into the phone. Some Chinese companies have literally put ads in their settings, at the top or at the bottom, something like that. But a lot of companies have been putting ads on the lock screen. This has actually gone back for quite some time. Google initially, not a big fan of this, but apparently they have changed their tune. They're now whistling a different tune, perhaps a greedier tune. Because if we read from Droid Life, beware Glance, coming soon to an Android lock screen near you. What Glance is, it is a piece of software, as you can see, already installed on over 400 million Android devices in Asia. It lives on your lock screen and feeds you what appears to be social media-like content once you click on the Glance Now button, but it is designed to make you want to click it, and they are, for all intents and purposes, they are ads. Let's pull up a picture here. So you go to unlock your phone, and you got your time and your notifications and so forth, but you also have an image and a banner at the bottom that will entice you to click on it. It might be current events, sports, entertainment, fitness, fun facts. But at any rate, when you click on one of these things, it's going to take you to a website or to an app or to something. And there will have been a company that paid to put their ad there on your lock screen. Now, of course, don't freak out. If you've already purchased your phone, I doubt this is going to be added in with the software update. What's happening here is that Glance is working with some of the carriers to have this stuff pre-installed. Now, the idea hopefully, would be that phone that you're going to buy is going to be effectively subsidized by this software being there. Maybe you're going to get a discount for saying, yeah, it's fine. You can show me ads on my lock screen. I'll just try to ignore them, make the phone a little bit cheaper. Hopefully that's the way it works. Hopefully the phones aren't the same price, plus with ads. But Google, it is important to mention, invested a lot of money in this company, millions of dollars back in 2019, pushing the service's valuation to over $1 billion. This is big business. You look at your lock screen all the time. I look at it actually not that often because I have biometrics and it just unlocks. And I actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I don't really see my lock screen all that much. So maybe there wouldn't be a big problem to me. But at any rate, as someone that, this is something I've said before, good ads are fine, bad ads are bad. Ads that are intrusive, obstructive, they get in the way, they're distracting, pop-ups, these are bad ads. The reality is the internet runs on advertisements. I make the vast majority of my money from advertisements that play before and after my videos. Now, I could tick a box and make ads play in the middle of my video, but I don't, because that's annoying. It makes for a bad viewing experience. So I have that disabled, right? So that's a bad ad. I don't like those. This is probably a bad ad, but it's what's going to happen probably on cheaper phones, again, hopefully to subsidize them a little bit. Guys, let me know what you think about this whole glance ads on your lock screen thing in the comments down below. That's all the news I have for you today. Massive shout out to my YouTube members for making this episode possible, as always. And until next time, don't forget to subscribe and stay nerdy, my friends.